I'm just going to say it. I think Mormons are atheists.
What then doesn't know is that if his claim Mormons are atheists holds up, then when others argue, and they do, that his view is actually atheism as well, then it must be true.
Once you piece all of this together, you can see the pattern. Mormonism has eternal value, eternal law, eternal intelligences, no ultimate explanation, and no metaphysical ground. And God is simply the most successful participant in that system. This is atheistic axiarchism with exalted agents inside of it. And these exalted agents are just humans. Now, to be clear, I'm not arguing that Mormons are atheists in the sociological or cultural sense. The main thrust of my argument here is metaphysical. All I'm saying is that their metaphysics operates within the same categories as atheism.
My topic today is the nature of God as that is understood within the classical theist tradition. And I'll also say something about how that understanding differs from what Brian Davis calls the theistic personalist conception of God, which Professor Geisler has also aptly labeled the neo-theist conception of God.
We're theistic personalists. We're not saying the Aquinas or the Thomists get everything right. And the other thing about God being a personal being, we're not all Thomists.
That's good. That's what I was going to get into next.
We're not classical theists. We're theistic personalists here, both Stan and I. We take our cues from Ryan Mullins, okay? We're not Thomists, so we don't hold to the definition of God in classical theism, which he's about to get into. He's assuming that all creedal Christians, whatever that means, are somehow into classical theism or Thomism, discounting all of us theistic personalists. Oh.
Neoclassical theism is the technical term, but then Thomas started calling neoclassical theists just personalists.
I see.
As an insult.
Yeah.
But I've just come to embrace the term personalism, and I think Ryan would too.
The view is called theistic personalism because it essentially treats God as the unique member of a species falling under the genus person, alongside other species of persons like human beings and angels, and differing from them in lacking their limitations in power, knowledge, goodness, etc. Theistic personalists regard God's being personal as entailing that he falls under a genus, and that in this and other ways he is not simple or non-composite. Here I'm alluding to some other background metaphysical themes in Aquinas that I haven't really talked about.
3, divine simplicity establishes the Trinity as monotheistic, meaning we believe in one God. This is one of the great challenges against us. If we believe in the Trinity, that there are 3 persons in the Godhead, how can we still believe in only one God?
Yeah. So again, I agree with Ryan Mullins. I don't hold to divine simplicity either.
Indeed, to deny that there is anything simple or non-composite would entail atheism because it implicitly denies that there's really anything having the ultimacy definitive of God.
There's a statement from Edward Fazer, I think in his book on 5 Proofs for God's Existence, where he says that without divine simplicity, you have atheism.
David Bentley Hart, not as nice, in his book, The Experience of God, Being, Consciousness, and Bliss, is pretty blunt and to the point. He puts it like this. He says, there's an ancient metaphysical doctrine that the source of all things, God, that is, must be essentially simple. That is, God cannot possess distinct parts or even distinct properties, and in himself does not allow even of a distinction between essence and existence. Why? He says, this idea isn't open to dispute if you believe that God stands at the end of reason's journey toward the truth of all things. It seems obvious to me that a denial of divine simplicity is tantamount to atheism, and the vast preponderance of metaphysical tradition concurs with that judgment.
So again, I agree with Ryan Mullins. I don't hold to divine simplicity either.
Without divine simplicity, you actually don't have a first cause of being.
Yeah.
And so you might have something that you call God, which is really, really, really great.
And powerful, yeah.
And powerful and wise, maybe even loving, just, and kind, but not the one from whom and through whom or to whom are all things. And so what you've really done is you've traded real theism for, in his, for an alien from Alpha Centauri, maybe.
Yeah.
Or
Simplicity simply means that God is not made up of parts. God is not broken down into more basic ontological constituents. God is his attributes. So God is not merely loving and righteous, but love and righteousness. And if we don't say that, if God merely instantiates his attributes, then in some sense, they would exist independently of him. God would not be utterly absolute and self-determined. It'd be like love and righteousness are just floating out here somehow, and then God comes along and just happens to correspond to them, and that won't do. So divine simplicity is necessary to protect the godness of God.
Gavin's being nice there, but what he means when you deny the godness of God, it means that what you believe of as God no longer possesses the necessary qualities to be truly called God.
The key arguments for monotheism, why there cannot be in principle more than one God, the idea is if you deny simplicity, if you affirm that there's both actuality and potentiality in God, for example, or a distinction in God between his essence and his existence, he has parts in at least that sense, you basically undermine the possibility of giving a philosophical demonstration of monotheism. God would be unique only at best in practice and not in principle. So that's one key reason why simplicity is so important.
The main thrust of my argument here is metaphysical. All I'm saying is that their metaphysics operates within the same categories as atheism.
So for reasons like these, and I hope I've sufficiently painted the stakes as very high indeed, for reasons such as these, the mainstream of the Western tradition in philosophical theology, whether in the thought of pagans like Aristotle and Plotinus, Jews like Maimonides, Muslims like Avicenna and Averroes, or Christians like Athanasius, Augustine, Anselm, and Aquinas, the tradition has always insisted on divine simplicity as a non-negotiable element of any sound conception of God. Hence, again, from the classical theist point of view, to deny simplicity is implicitly to affirm atheism.
So again, I agree with Ryan Mullins. I don't hold to divine simplicity either.